Millionaire Elon Musk surprises as he reveals how a black homeless man changed his life at 70. John Parker had it all. Billion-dollar deals, luxury cars, a penthouse overlooking the chaos of Manhattan. Yet, something cracked inside him the day he stumbled into a story that no boardroom or trophy could buy. It was on a noisy, rain-slicked afternoon on 42nd Street, the kind of rush hour where horns honk and feet pound the pavement like a relentless drum. John, now 70, white hair barely hiding his tired eyes, stood frozen near a cracked subway grate, a cigarette trembling in his fingers. Then he saw him, a man on the sidewalk, wrapped in faded clothes, speckled with grime, skin dark and weathered, eyes sharp and steady despite the world's weight pressing down. The man was singing, softly, a gospel song that cut through the urban roar like a blade. Everyone else kept walking, but John stopped. Something in that voice pulled at the corners of a life he'd spent chasing money. The homeless man smiled, a slow, genuine thing, and offered a small, cracked cup. John fished out a few dollars, but the man shook his head. "No, sir," he said, voice rough but honest. "Not about the money. You want to talk?" John's chest tightened, the crowd blurring into a gray fog of noise. For the first time in decades, he didn't want to run. Minutes turned into hours. The man's name was Marcus. His story spilled out like raw blood. Lost job, lost home. A past scarred by pain John barely dared imagine. But Marcus carried something priceless. Resilience, armor, built from every heartbreak and every hand extended in kindness. John listened. His old life swirled back like a violent storm. Missed birthdays, a daughter's silence on the other end of a forgotten phone. Nights spent awake, haunted by mistakes and regrets he'd swept under gold-plated rugs. "Why do you care?" Marcus asked, when John's silence stretched. Because John realized he no longer recognized himself. As they talked, the city around them morphed. Blurred faces, endless noise, the relentless speed of a machine he'd kept feeding for so long. But right here, time paused. The concrete world gave way to truth. Then, before John could ask the question burning in his throat, how could this man with nothing be so rich in soul? Marcus said something that froze the cold air. "You remind me of someone I lost a long time ago." John's heart slammed. A name stirred in the darkness of his memory. A family story he thought buried. Was it possible? Had their lives crossed paths before? Was this just a coincidence? Or something far bigger than either could see? Suddenly, the wealthy ex-CEO faced a life-shattering choice. Keep the safety of his past, or step into a new, uncertain story that might just redeem everything. The city's lights flickered around them. The crowd surged, voices rising in a confused roar. But John stayed still, caught between what was and what could be. What happened next? How did this chance meeting tie John's past to Marcus's pain? And what would John decide when the truth finally landed between them like a thunderclap? The answers hung thick in the air, as heavy and unpredictable as the city itself. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like. That really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. As the city buzzed and swirled around them, John stood in a strange trance, his heart racing against the weight of Marcus's words. Each word hung in the air, vibrant and alive, while the cold seeped into his bones. He needed to know more. Where did this connection lead? Who was this person Marcus had lost? Can you tell me? John's voice cracked, the pleading tone surprising him. But in that moment, he didn't care about sounding weak. Marcus opened his mouth, his eyes narrowing in thought. It's not just who, it's what she did. Silence fell between them like a thick blanket. Just then, a shout broke the stillness, echoing through the street. Hey, you can't stop there! A police officer's bark cut through the noise, and the crowd shifted uncomfortably. But John couldn't move. He leaned closer to Marcus. What do you mean? Before Marcus could answer, a scream pierced the air. It wasn't just any scream. It came from a few feet away, sharp and raw, slicing through the heartbeat of the city. A woman, maybe in her 20s, stumbled back from a man in a dark trench coat, her hands flailing. "Get away from me!" She was terrified, clutching her purse as if it were a shield. Murmurs began to ripple through the nearby crowd. John turned instinctively, caught off guard. He'd seen this before. Panic spread quick as wildfire, but when he looked back at Marcus, the homeless man's expression had transformed. The calm serenity that had painted his features moments ago vanished, replaced by a shadow of something darker. Marcus? John stepped back, unease creeping into his bones. Listen, you need to go, now! Marcus's voice dropped low and urgent, like a whisper of wind before a storm. Why? John asked, confusion tugging at him. What's going on? Just trust me. But before Marcus could explain further, the woman who had screamed rushed forward, panic in her eyes. Someone help! That man has a weapon! Gasps filled the air as heads turned. The crowd pulsated like a living being, every soul suddenly aware of the threat looming around them. Marcus's gaze darted around, and then his sharp eyes locked onto John. That man, he's connected to my past. You don't understand what's at stake. John's heart dropped. What do you mean? But before Marcus could say another word, the man in the trench coat lunged forward, pushing through the gathering mass. A glint of metal shone in his hand. Was it a knife? The crowd recoiled. The panic intensified. In that instant, everything shifted. Marcus stepped in front of John, panic etched on his face. Get back, he shouted, pushing John aside. The next moment, chaos erupted. The officer rushed forward. But the man with the weapon lunged, and time slowed to a breathless crawl. Marcus, no! John shouted. Everything shattered. The crowd erupted, running in every direction, their faces twisted in fear. John watched in horror as the glint of the knife disappeared into the chaos. Then a shot rang out, loud, jarring. The world felt like it splintered in that moment. Silence hit in the aftermath. John's heart raced, his breath caught somewhere deep inside. He could barely comprehend what just happened. Where was he? Where was Marcus? As he fought through the sea of bodies, dread washed over him. The truth hung heavy in the air, shrouded in confusion. The connection between his life and Marcus's, a thread woven with secrets and blood, had just twisted into a tempest. What was happening? And who was Marcus really? In the blink of an eye, everything was about to change. But the answer felt miles away, buried beneath the weight of a shocking revelation that neither of them saw coming. As the weight of Marcus's words hung in the air, John's heart raced. Before he could voice the question burning deep inside him, a sudden commotion erupted nearby. A high-pitched scream sliced through the noise of the city, drawing every head toward a scene that unfolded only feet away. A young woman stumbled, her phone clutched tightly in her hand, eyes wide with terror. "Help! Someone, please!" she cried, the panic in her voice ramping up the anxiety that already thickened the atmosphere. Through the gap in the crowd, John saw a figure looming behind her. The man was tall, with a wild gash on his forehead, barely held together by scraggly hair. He jerked toward the woman, fists clenched, eyes darting with a feral energy. "Get away from her!" yelled John, instinctively stepping forward, and suddenly realizing he might have placed himself in danger. Marcus shot up beside him, surprisingly quick, and grabbed John's arm. "No," Marcus whispered urgently. "It's not what it looks like." Then came the flash of metal. The man brandished a knife, the glint reflecting the harsh streetlights and slicing through John's intention with fear. The crowd gasped, panic rippling through the people. "What do you want?" someone yelled from the back, nerves frayed. The world had narrowed to the space between John, Marcus, and the trembling woman caught in the chaos. "I just need money! I'm not gonna hurt anyone!" the man shouted, his voice a tangled mix of desperation and rage. John felt his heart pounding, not just for the woman, but for Marcus, the man who had just tugged at his own heartstrings. "Listen, brother!" shouted Marcus, stepping forward, hands raised in surrender. "We can help you. Just put it down." But before the man could respond, a sharp pain shot through John's chest. His attention snapped back to Marcus, who suddenly faltered. The homeless man's expression twisted into one of utter shock. "No! Marcus, what?" The man turned, suddenly seizing Marcus by the collar. "You know me?" he yelled, eyes blazing. It was clear to John that something far deeper was unfolding, layers of pain cracking open in a public spectacle of fear. "Put him down!" John's voice was almost primal now. Fear threatened to steal his breath, but he didn't back away. Marcus's gaze swept over John, confusion and recognition mingling in his eyes. That's when it hit John. He saw a flicker of familiarity in the man's face. "No way! You're from the shelter years back," the man spat, glaring at Marcus. "You never came back to help." John's chest tightened. The threads of this unexpected confrontation were pulling tighter, linking lives in a way he had never foreseen. "What do you mean?" "It's not just about you," Marcus rasped. "It's about the choices we all made." In that moment of chaotic clarity, John felt a wrenching realization take root deep in his gut. This wasn't just a mere chance meeting. Their pasts were tied together with threads of grief and regret, shared stories that had splintered into paths adorned with guilt. Then, before John or anyone could react, the man swung at Marcus, and everything seemed to slow down. John lunged forward, adrenaline screaming in his veins. But it wasn't enough. The next shattering moment unfolded before his eyes. A blinding flash of action, followed by a gasp from the crowd. Screams erupted. Marcus staggered back, a crimson line blossoming on his shirt, vibrant against the drab of his worn clothing. Time stood still, suspended in a chaos where lives teetered on the brink. John's heart dropped. "No!" he screamed, rushing forward, but the road ahead blurred with the weight of uncertainty. Everything he thought he understood about that moment and about himself began to crumble. As Marcus fell to the pavement, the world fractured and a heaviness swallowed the air. John knelt, feeling the cold ground beneath him, the panic rising up like smoke in his throat. The crowd murmured, faces painted with shock and horror. And right then, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. What had he stumbled into? How could he save this moment born from despair? The truth felt like a freight train barreling toward him, and he was left grasping at shadows. The darkness was deep, and the answers were just out of reach. John knelt on the pavement, desperate breaths rasping in his throat. The scene unfurled before him like something from a nightmare. Marcus, a man who had pulled John from the brink of his own emptiness, now collapsed on the cold, hard ground. The crimson stain blossomed. "Ack! Marcos!" John screamed, his voice cracking under the weight of panic. He pressed his hands against the wound, a futile attempt to stem the flow of blood. But all he grasped was confusion. The chaos surrounding him blurred into indistinct whispers and frantic movements. People shouted, pushing against each other, fear radiating outwards like ripples from a stone cast into a smooth lake. Someone pulled out a phone to call for help. But the sound of sirens seemed distant, a world away from the urgent need of the moment. "Stay with me," John begged, looking into Marcus's eyes, which were dulling, the light flickering like a candle caught in a gust of wind. An irrational dread seized him, a shadow whispering that this moment, this connection, was slipping through his fingers like sand. He'd just begun to understand this man's depth, only to face the possibility of losing him. I'm here, man." A shudder rippled through him, and John leaned closer, hanging on to every breath. "That man was your brother," Marcus gasped, his eyes glazing over with an awful understanding. The revelation hung heavy in the air. John drew back, shaken, his heart thumping wildly. What? No, he can't be. But as the jagged edges of realization cut deeper, John felt a churning sensation in his stomach. This wasn't just about a random encounter or shared suffering. This was something that twisted the very fabric of their lives. "Marcus, please," John pleaded, but the words hung pointless between them. Suddenly, the crowd parted, like the Red Sea. A woman stepped forward, her face pale with urgency. "Get back!" she shouted, eyes flaring with fear. "I know him! He's dangerous! He's been looking for you for years!" Confusion rippled through the spectators, murmurs rising, blending into a cacophony of disbelief. John's mind raced. How could this be? Everything he thought he understood about his life, his decisions, was it all a lie? Before he could process it, the woman lunged forward, eyes blazing. "You're his twin. You're the reason he lost everything." Her voice echoed in a chilling clarity, each word slicing through John's defenses like glass. "Twin?" John gasped, his breath hitching in his throat. The crowd recoiled, a wave of shocked faces, their expressions a mix of horror and grim understanding. What was happening? Relief mingled with betrayal, a surge of emotions he couldn't grasp. "I tried to save him. I tried to bring you both together," Marcus murmured, eyes fluttering, fighting against the inevitable. "But it was too late. Always too late." Then, with a final gasp, his body slumped. There was an agonizing silence, a tangible heaviness that filled the space. The weight of the truth crashed down, pinning John in place. This wasn't just an ordinary day. This was a reckoning that had been years in the making. "Get him help!" the woman screamed. But John didn't move. All he could see was the glimmer of what had been. A life interwoven with destinies, secrets cloaked in shadows, and a future engulfed by unanswered questions. Was Marcus telling the truth? Was their connection forged through blood, marred by choices none of them made? The ground seemed to shift beneath him, a chasm of uncertainty opening wide, threatening to swallow him whole. And as he stared into the encircling darkness, he knew nothing would be the same. Who was he in this twisted tale? What lay ahead was uncharted, an abyss filled with more questions than answers. And he was not ready for what would come next. As the sounds of the city swirled around them, John felt the weight of Marcus's gaze pierce through his thoughts. The moment hung thick, heavy like the damp air. What did Marcus mean? Who had he lost? He leaned in, intent on unraveling the mystery, the world fading away, until all there was were two men standing on a cracked sidewalk, life swirling like autumn leaves. "I don't understand," John finally replied, his voice low, barely above the hum. "Who do I remind you of?" The smile on Marcus's face flickered. "A brother I lost a long time ago. We were close before everything went dark. I thought I saw him when I looked at you." Before John could ask what he meant, chaos erupted. A sudden crash echoed through the air. A delivery truck skidded to a halt just beside them, tires screeching. The driver leaped out, shouting, as a small group of punks burst from a nearby alley, darting toward the truck. John's heart raced. He could barely process the horror unfolding before him. "Hey, stop! What are you doing?" The driver yelled, panic threading through his voice. But then everything moved too fast. The world turned into a blur of color and screams. A tense knot tightened in John's chest as the group wrestled the driver away from his vehicle. Nearby onlookers gasped, and just as suddenly, John felt himself being pulled away. "Come on!" Marcus shouted, urgency spiking, his hand gripping John's arm. But the grip was more than just panic. It was a desperate need to escape. John glanced back just in time to see one of the thieves stumble, shifting something from inside the truck onto the pavement, a heavy bag clattering against the concrete. As the thieves scrambled, something rolled out, catching the light. A badge. Marcus froze. "Get down!" Okay? He pulled John to the ground, just as a gunshot rang out, a loud crack that split the chaos. John's world came crashing back. As they ducked behind the alley wall, a familiar face from years past swam into view. The officer, now sprinting toward the scene, was someone from John's past. A cop he'd crossed paths with during his high-flying days. A man caught up in the underbelly of deals gone wrong. The officer's gaze locked onto John's, eyes wide with recognition. "John? Is that you?" That moment ignited something deep within him. Fear washed over John as he grappled with memories he thought he'd buried. The truth knotted in his gut. He felt Marcus's grip tighten. Then the realization hit him like an avalanche. Was this all connected? How did the law know him here, now, with Marcus? "John, we need to go." Marcus's voice sliced through the panic. But John couldn't move. The pieces started to click, but remained buried under a heavy fog. As the sirens wailed in the distance, he felt a sudden, wild urge to confront the past. "Wait, are you crazy?" Marcus shot back, his urgency palpable. "They'll arrest us too. We can't run anymore, not from the truth." And that's when the final blow fell. The officer was yelling something. It all sounded like a distant echo. "You don't have to do this. We can talk it out. I just want to know." Just then, another figure emerged from the shadows of the alley, dark and foreboding. A woman stepped forward, face shrouded in mystery, holding up a cell phone that lit up the night. "John," she called, her voice cold as ice. "We need to talk about your son." John's entire world shattered. The past loomed back like a monstrous wave, crashing into reality. Heart pounding, he turned to Marcus, who seemed equally rocked. What son? What secret was buried so deep that it threatened to destroy everything in one shocking moment? The crowd pulsed around them, voices rising, panic swirling. But all John could do was stand there, rifling through fragments of a life that suddenly meant everything, waiting for the truth to surface amidst the chaos. The city swayed around them. The chaos of life swirling just beyond the fragile bubble they'd created. Each moment tightened the knot of fate they were tangled in. But before John could voice his burning question, something shifted. A rush of energy swept through the street, cold and electric. Suddenly, a distant shout sliced through the air, sharp and jarring. "Hey, get away from him, man!" Startled, both men turned as a figure stumbled through the crowd. A young man, wild-eyed and disheveled, barreled forward, his hands flailing. He skidded to a stop, panting heavily, and flung his arm out as if reaching for something deeper than the two men. "Marcus, it's me! I found you!" The world around John blurred again. Who was this guy? Marcus's expression shifted from surprise to pure shock. "What? How did you—" Then it hit John. Recognition crashed through him. The young man wasn't just another stranger. He was familiar. Too familiar. He was Jonathan, Marcus's son. The son whom Marcus had lost to the system, to addiction, to a life that pulled him down as surely as gravity. "He's alive," Marcus gasped, a whisper of disbelief falling from his lips. "I thought—" The crowd thickened, eyes darting between the two men and back to John, who stood, stunned. The weight of everything he was about to learn pressed down on him like an oppressive fog. Jonathan took a step closer. eyes wide and desperate. "You've got to help me. I've been looking for you. They took everything from us, and I'm trying to get it back." His voice cracked with urgency. John felt his stomach churn. They weren't just here to talk. This was something bigger, fraught with anger and hurt. "What do you mean, everything?" "Your family's wealth, the mansion, it turned into a prison. You don't know what they did. I'm here to bring him home." John's pulse raced. The shadows from his past loomed tall. Memories flickered, his father's business empire, the way it tore families apart, how it swallowed people whole. He thought of Marcus's past, one that could be intertwined with his own. "Home?" John echoed, realizing the fragmented puzzle pieces of their lives were tangled beyond recognition. "But, don't you get it?" Jonathan interrupted, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Everything you've been trying to buy, it's lost. But you can help us take it back. It's more than just money. It's a second chance." Time hung thick, the city no longer moving. The faces in the crowd blended into a sea of judgment and curiosity. None of them really understanding, but all of them watching. Then, before John could respond, an unmarked police van screeched to a halt a few feet away. Doors swung open, and uniformed officers poured out, toughness written in their tense stances. "Get down!" one shouted, aiming a flashlight into the faces of the three men. "This is a warrant! Everyone down on the ground!" Shock coursed through John as the reality of it all shattered like glass. His past, his pursuit, and the lives at his feet, all of it spiraled in a single moment of fear. Marcus recoiled. Jonathan's face blanched, and John's heart raced, a riot in his chest. What did they want? What had just been uncovered? And how far did this tangled web of lives stretch? Questions hung in the air, laced with dread. A clamor of voices rose. Panic set in. No turning back now. The truth was breaking open. And John? He stood at the edge, caught in the storm of storms, wondering if there was any escape. As the city pulsed around them, the moment thickened like the damp air. John's mind raced. What did Marcus mean? The words hung heavy. Time slowed, setting the heartbeat in his ears. "I remind you of someone?" John breathed, the question hanging like a lost key. He was desperate to know, to connect the threads of their separate lives. Marcus's gaze faltered, his eyes filling with something deep, hurtful. "Yeah, my brother. We lost touch after he got sick. I thought he was gone for good." His voice cracked, the softness replaced by weight. "I lost everything that day." John felt a rush of compassion, like a wave crashing over him. Yet a chill skated down his spine. What happened? But before Marcus could answer, a figure pushed through the crowd. A woman, beautiful but frantic, eyes darting like a wild bird. She locked onto John. "Dad!" she shouted, voice slicing through the noise. John's heart dropped. His daughter, Rachel. The wounds of silence crushed him. Memories swirling like ghosts in his mind. Rachel? He barely recognized his own voice, rasping out her name. She stood frozen, disbelief painted across her face. Her gaze shifted to Marcus, narrowing. "Who is he?" The tension sparked like a live wire. Marcus shrank back, eyes flicking between father and daughter, one desperate, one hesitant. "Rachel, wait!" John's plea hung in the cold air. But she cut him off, her voice gaining power. You said you cared about nothing but work, Dad. You didn't. Her words erupted, a dam breaking. And now, you're talking to a stranger on the street? Rachel, please, this is... he started. But the surprise turned into anger, and she took a step closer, finger pointing like a dagger. This is the same man, isn't it? The one we talked about, who ruined everything for us? Ruined? I never, John stammered. But terror gripped him harder than the cold rain. What did she mean? Memories of arguments from years ago swirled. Accusations, missed moments, broken bridges. What's going on? Marcus's voice cut through, raw and heavy. The connection frayed like a worn rope. Rachel's eyes hadn't left him. He's just playing you, Marcus. He's the reason my life fell apart. She recoiled, tears pooling in her eyes, making the city seem even harsher. Rachel, John's heart raced. That's not fair. I was trying to protect you. I thought... A crack, a sudden explosion of noise echoed as a metal dumpster toppled in the street nearby. The crowd gasped, the tension flipping into chaos. People shrieked and ducked. The city held its breath. John's mind scrambled between the echoes of Rachel's pain and the urgent fear around them. He felt the grip on reality loosen. Marcus stepped forward, confusion flickering in his eyes. You're telling me he did this to you? It hit John like a punch. What had always been his truth churned so quickly that for a moment he doubted everything. Everything he had fought to forget, to bury. Before he could respond, a siren wailed in the distance, growing louder. It ripped through the chaos. Rachel's pain twisted into fury, her breath coming in sharp gasps. I needed you! Against everything, Dad! You should have fought for me, but you didn't! The anger radiated like fire, her words igniting the air between them. And in that storm of betrayal, memories came flooding back. The fragile threads of a family built on sacrifice and mistakes unraveled. Suddenly, amid the rising noise, Marcus stepped towards Rachel, his face somber. Wait, you don't understand. Don't! Rachel shouted, standing strong. Stay out of this. You have no idea who he is. But just as John took a step forward, heart hammering in his chest, a shadow loomed behind them, unnoticed. Eyes dark, he approached, a figure long concealed. A man with familiar features, glowing under the streetlights. John. The man's voice broke through, splitting the air with the gravity of a new dawn. The world stopped. Everything crumbled. Dad, he's your brother, the man declared, each word echoing like thunder. The air wasn't just heavy, it was electric, and with that revelation, the fabric of everything John thought he knew, everything that had tied him to this moment, strained dangerously, threatening to snap. The city moved on, but for John, time shattered, leaving only questions, anger, and an uncertain path ahead. John, the man's voice, broke through the chaos. The name, ringing like a bell in an empty church. The world stilled, each breath a whisper, every heartbeat echoing in a resonant silence. What? John's words hung in the air, caught between confusion and dread as he took a step back. His thoughts raced, the atmosphere shifted, crackling with tension as the crowd held its breath, waiting. The man stepped closer, eyes piercing, and John could see the resemblance in the sharp angles of his face. Your brother. I'm your brother. The declaration hit like a punch. Panic surged through him. His heart raced. What are you talking about? No, you can't be. Look at me. I'm the reason you were pushed away. The same reason your family fell apart. The truth clawed at John's throat. A whirlwind of memories danced in his head. Shadows of his past, locked doors he'd never opened. Rachel's shock, Marcus's pain, the revelation about Jonathan. It all felt intertwined, a tangled web, pulling tight. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the street, carrying the sounds of honking cars, shouting voices, and sirens drawing closer. John felt dizzy, overwhelmed. He could hardly think. How could he have a brother he never knew? Was this madness, or had he truly lost everything? But before he could voice his struggle, Rachel stepped forward, her expression a mix of anger and disbelief. You're lying. He can't be who you say. You're just trying to hurt him. No! The man shouted, desperation lacing his voice. I'm telling the truth. You have to believe me. A brush of doubt flickered across Rachel's face. Behind her, a tension-built ripple thrummed through the crowd. Heads turned, whispers traveled. Shock, curiosity, skepticism. Stop it, John shouted, holding his head. Why now? Why here? The man's face fell. Because I'm trying to save you. Save all of us! From what? John demanded, the weight of the moment suffocating him. But before he could press further, a sudden, deafening bang echoed through the street. Gunfire, panic exploded. Our instinct kicked in, adrenaline jolting through John's veins. He turned, instinctively shielding Rachel, but it was too chaotic. Bodies moved in panic, people falling to the ground, screams piercing the air like knives. Get down! Marcus yelled, tugging at John and Rachel, urgency flooding his voice. But John didn't budge. He stood rooted, fight or flight racing through him, unsure where the danger lurked. The world blurred, but from where the shots had come, an unmistakable figure emerged. Tall, dressed in black, face hidden behind a mask. A moving predator slithering through the chaos. Then John saw it, felt it in his bones. This was no random shooting. It was aimed directly at them. Stay together, Marcus shouted, pulling John toward a nearby doorway, crowding together in a tight space. But that moment, just between breaths, the masked figure turned. A flash of recognition flickered. It couldn't be. Had he really returned? Derek! John gasped, disbelief roiling within. The name crackled into the silence. The one friend, the one ally who turned traitor. The one who had set everything spiraling out of control. The catalyst for nightmarish choices. Then the figure lunged, bringing chaos alive again. John's body acted before he could think. He pushed the others back, instinct screaming as Derek's intentions became clear. The truth, the lies, the brotherhood laid bare. What are you doing? Rachel shrieked. Get away from him! But there was no stopping this now. Hope, fear, and betrayal swirled together. John's world was collapsing under the weight of revelation. Who were they really? As bullets rang out, terror surged through him. He had to move. Each second became a heartbeat. Each heartbeat a decision. We can't trust him. A light reflected off the gunmetal like a spotlight, and Derek's eyes burned with an intensity that chilled John. What would happen next? Where did their fractured lives lead now, with all the threads of fate winding tighter? The stakes had never felt higher, and John braced himself for consequences that would forever reshape everything. John's heart raced, the air thick with chaos. Derek loomed over them, a ghost from his past, pulling at old wounds. "You think you can just come back and fix this?" John shouted, his voice rising above the frantic crowd. Rachel's panic-stricken face held confusion and anger, while Marcus stood stiff, trying to read the storm brewing in John's eyes. "Why are you here?" John demanded, feeling adrenaline surge. Outside, sirens blared, the distant rhythm of approaching danger creeping closer. It was all spiraling out of control. "Because it's time for the truth," Derek answered, his voice strained. And then, in a moment that felt like the crack of thunder in a clear sky, he pointed toward the chaotic dance of lights and shouting. "You think this is just about you? What if I told you it's about all of us? Your family, your past, your future, it's all connected." John's breath caught. He could feel the weight of 1,000 memories crash against him like waves. He had tried to close the door on that part of his life, but it now stood wide open, a portal to secrets he didn't even know were buried. "What do you mean?" Derek took a shaky breath, and in that instant, the air around them quivered. "Your son, he's not just missing. He's been taken. The key to everything." His words sliced through John with an unseen blade, each syllable embedding deeper than the last. It felt like a punch to the gut. John staggered back, disbelief twisting inside him. Did he even have a son? No, that couldn't be true. Everything he tried to forget rushed back. Rachel's face twisted in a mixture of shock and anger, as if she had sensed the revelation before it came out. "What?" she shouted, her eyes wide. "What does he mean, Dad?" I, John stammered, not ready to face the truth spinning wildly around them. The city roared with life, but his world stood still. "I went to look for him," Derek continued, his voice low yet urgent. "He's been mixed up in something terrible. Something your family buried to protect their reputation." Before John could snap back with disbelief, a sudden shout rang out from the throng of bodies behind them. A figure burst forth from the crowd, skin pale, clothes disheveled, eyes wild with torment. "Dad!" the figure cried, arms outstretched as panic engulfed the scene. It was a boy, not far from Rachel's age. His voice cracked with desperation, raw and pleading. "Who the hell are you?" Rachel yelled, stepping protectively in front of John. "Aiden, it's me, your brother!" The boy screamed, and John's heart crumbled. A new thread twisted around the already tangled web of their lives. Everything clamored for attention, smashing against one another. John's knees felt weak, his hands trembling, the reality crashing down. Aiden? How could this be happening? His son, the child he never knew existed, suddenly stood before him, confusion and fury mixing in the air like storm clouds. Amidst the chaos, he felt the ground beneath him shift. Marcus stared, the shock rolling over his features like a wave pulling back from the shore. The connections were unraveling like a fraying rope, scattering memories in every direction. "It can't be," he whispered, but in that agonizing moment, another crack of gunfire erupted, severing the tension. People screamed, and the chaos turned to utter madness. Instinct kicked in. Derek lunged to shield John and Rachel, while Marcus shoved Aiden out of the line of fire. The crowd ricocheted, bodies moving like a tumultuous tide. "Run!" someone yelled, but John stood frozen. His eyes darted between the brothers, standing shoulder to shoulder, two lifelines tangled in a fate that threatened to break apart. "What do you mean, brother?" he gasped, desperation clawing at him. Just then, Aiden looked directly into John's eyes, fear piercing through the cacophony. "We're in danger, Dad! They're coming for you! And me!" But before the revelation could settle, the chaos erupted again. Shadows tightening around them like a noose. The truth felt like a storm, threatening to swallow them whole with every pulse of frantic energy. And just when John thought it couldn't get any worse, he saw a dark figure emerge from among the panic. A face he recognized too well. A figure that would turn the tide of their lives forever. "John," the voice spat venomously, cold as ice. "You've been a long time coming." And suddenly, everything he thought he understood trembled on the brink of an unfathomable precipice, leaving him gasping for clarity in a storm of secrets and lies. As chaos reigned, John's heart pounded in his chest, his world spinning like a frantic carousel. Derek's menacing presence loomed, his empty promise spilling into the air, heavy as lead. Every pulse of tension tightened the atmosphere, coiling around them like a constrictor's embrace. "This isn't how it ends," Derek yelled, venom dripping from his words. "It's time to put this family back together, whether you like it or not." "Family?" John spat, incredulous. "You don't get to decide that, not after everything you've done." "Enough!" cried Marcus, stepping protectively in front of John, the weight of lives lost carried in his voice, echoing like a war cry. "You've messed with the wrong people, Derek. It's over." Before another word could be exchanged, a shrill siren pierced through the noise. Police cars flooded the street, their lights flashing like beacons of hope amidst the darkness. The crowd swayed uneasily, eyes darting between the gathering law enforcement and the chaos erupting near the center. "Get down!" an officer shouted as they leaped from their vehicles, weapons drawn. The moment stretched taut, silence wrapping tightly, aching for release. "John, please." Aiden's voice shook, urgency pulling him closer. "We need to get out of here." With a swift motion, Derek tried to retreat into the shadows, but Marcus lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. A gasp rose from the crowd, eyes wide with shock and fear. "Stop!" John shouted, adrenaline pushing him forward. "We can't let him get away. He needs to face this." Derek squirmed, trying to break free, but Marcus held him down, grappling for control. In that moment, an officer approached, glaring down at them with a resolute expression. "What's happening here?" "The truth," John cried. "He's the one who—" "Shut it!" the officer barked, stepping closer to John and holding him back. "You're all part of this mess. Don't make it worse." But as tensions escalated, Rachel stepped forward, standing her ground. "Wait! Let us explain what he's done, what he took from us." "Rachel, don't!" John warned, fear crawling up his spine. But she nodded, determination igniting her voice. "We deserve our voices heard. He's not going to tear this family apart again." In those frantic seconds, secrets unspooled, truth spilling forth like water breaking through a dam. One by one, they shared their stories. Marcus opened up about his lost brother. Aiden revealed the plot hatched against them, and John recounted the paths that led him to despair. And just like that, under the wings of sirens and shadows, the air became electrified with possibility. Behind them, Derek squirmed, With each shared truth, he grew smaller. The light of the moment seemed to consume him. "You don't know what you're doing!" he yelled, losing power as the tide turned against him. But it was John who stepped forward, voice firm like a bridge over stormy waters. "No, Derek, you're wrong. We're not broken. We're rising from the ashes. You can't take that away from us anymore." A powerful silence blanketed the alley, its weight shifting in the presence of revelation. The officers still held their ground, confusion mingling with curiosity. Slowly, it became clear the story was unraveling, and each person struggled to make sense of it. "Look, we can't settle this like this!" Derek shrieked. But the embers of his authority had fizzled out, leaving a hollow shell of a man. The police officer suddenly aimed his gun toward him. Voice low and steady. "Get on the ground, now!" Panic flared in Derek's eyes. In a terrifying moment, he charged. A final, desperate bid for freedom. But John watched, heart racing, knowing there was no way out for him now. As his past collided with his present, John stood at a crossroads. He felt the warmth of those behind him, their strength, their choices, pushing him forward. But as darkness descended and the officer finally subdued Derek, everything quieted again. John turned to the group, breaths heavy with uncertainty. "What now?" he whispered, voice trembling. The uncertainty hung thick. Could they really rebuild? Aiden stepped closer, his eyes shimmering with hope. "Together, we face this together." Nods of agreement flickered like stars igniting in the night, and for the first time, John felt a spark. As the sounds of handcuffs clicked and promises were made, John's heart whispered with the realization that they had a chance to be whole again, to rewrite a story marred by pain and betrayal. Yet, in the distance, shadows loomed, and somewhere, Derek smirked, unraveling a sinister plan beneath his restrained facade. The battle was far from over. And there you have it. But wait a moment. Before you head off, I need you to subscribe immediately so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories that are going to blow your mind. This is the moment to show your support for the channel. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this incredible content alive. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. I want to hear from every one of you. Lastly, don't wait even a second longer to share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Only true fans understand the importance of